The expectation now is that Zuma's legal team will make fresh representations to the NPA as to why the charges should be dropped. Any ideas as to what the arguments there will be?
Well, I think there's a statement that came out of the presidency earlier this afternoon, just an hour or so ago, which alluded to the KPMG forensic report that provided the basis for some of the issues that led to the charges being formulated. But I think there are 2 points to make here. Firstly, the NPA is not obliged to hear representations from the President. The Constitution very clearly says that the National Director of Public Prosecutions may hear the representations. So Advocate Abrahams would have a discretion not to hear them and not to entertain them, especially on the basis that President Zuma has had the opportunity to make these representations before. This matter has now dragged out for such a long time that really the pressure is on the NPA to act. Secondly, that even if the KPMG forensic report is called into question, I think on the basis of the various judgments that we've had in this saga, it's quite clear that what the courts are saying is that the veracity of such a report is best left to the courts to make a determination about, not for Advocate Abrahams or any other person to decide on whether that report stands the test of scrutiny or not. That's the duty of the courts in a democratic, rule-based society such as ours, and we would expect that that matter will go to the courts and they will make the appropriate findings.
The NPA has responded by saying that it will interrogate the ruling and make a decision. How much pressure is on Shaun Abrahams now to prosecute President Zuma and reinstate the original charges?
Well, I think there's huge pressure. If one reads that judgment today, although the court did not go as far as to say that the NPA must institute the prosecution or reinstitute the prosecution, I think everything in that judgment points to that. And the court has very clearly said that there is no basis for President Zuma not to have been charged way back in 2009, and there's certainly no reason now why those charges should not be proceeded with as a matter of urgency.
Is there the possibility that Zuma might still go to the Constitutional Court to appeal, or did he quash that possibility by admitting his own case has no merit?
Well, I think he's conceded that point already by conceding that the decision was irrational. I don't think there's anything that's in today's judgment of the SCA that gives President Zuma any opportunity to seek to appeal to the Constitutional Court. All the legal issues that he conceded on form the crux of today's judgment. So it really is a question now of the NPA now having to act in terms of instituting the prosecution.
There's also a commission of inquiry into state capture kicking off soon in Parliament. It does really seem that the pressure is mounting on President Zuma.
Well, I think, you know, the issues around President Zuma, the issues around governance in South Africa, the state of state-owned companies, the allegations of state capture have been mounting over the period of his presidency. And yes, it is coming to a head right at this point in time. And the revelations that are coming out on a daily basis, I think, point to the fact that President Zuma is not fit to lead South Africa. And I think this judgment today should have been the final nail in the coffin, certainly for him to say that the time is now come for him to step down.
Well, as you said, that isn't the case, because we already heard from the presidency and they said, you know, it's now up to the NPA to decide what happens. What ideally should happen now?
Well, we know from previous experience, and if we look at the Judge Squire's judgment back in 2008 that led to the ANC recalling President Thabo Mbeki at that point in time, I would suggest that this judgment today of the SCA, being a much stronger judgment, should provide sufficient basis for the ANC to take similar action against President Jacob Zuma.